So, first, I'd like you to meet Leanne Hutter. She is a graduate of the class of 2022 of the Creative High Growth Program and has been going through her own professional transition that's been in process now for about 2, 3 years. And amongst other things, Leanne is she's creating in her life right now. She's also a member of the Creative High Growth team as a supporting mentor. So, welcome, Leanne. Hello.
Hello.
And then second, help me welcome Ericson proper. Ericson was the first student who went through the creative high growth process, and in a way, he helped shape the journey that I now take people on. He's also part of the creative high growth support team, and I'll let him tell more of his story when in a minute. So I'm curious to ask you guys first. Which stage are you meeting yourself in these days? So, Leanne, why don't you go first?
hmm I'm meeting myself in a new beginning after a very messy and long middle and a painful long goodbye. So
Mm,
that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
wow. How about you, Erickson? Where are you meeting yourself?
When I really honestly look at that question, I'm in the new beginning, but I've got a serious messy middle hangover that I'm working with. But it's quite all right. It's
Yeah,
adding fuel to the new beginning.
y- yeah. So I'm curious to ask you guys, how did you feel in the beginning of this transition? And maybe you can tell us about a little bit about what you transitioned from and into in this particular moment, Leanne.
Sure. Let's see. I think my transition began when I was at a moment where I had to decide about a pretty big career decision, actually. I had been working for an amazing company for 10 years and really loving my job, really loving the people that I worked with. But when I hit my 10-year anniversary, I took a step back and I reflected. And I felt really grateful to have been part of so much progress and so many wonderful collaborations. But when you're at a place for a long time, you get to witness and be part of progress, but you also get to come up against challenges that sometimes are really beyond your influence and control. And as a leader in this company, I felt as if some of those challenges I had really given my best shot to. And I was starting to feel complete. I felt like I had given all that I could give. I had learned all that I could learn. I had taught that all I could teach. And I felt ready for something different. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that it was time for me to leave. So that was really the beginning of my long goodbye.
And you left your job before you had anything else lined up. You went into a complete unknown space, right?
I did. I did. There were some opportunities that were presenting itself, thankfully, um, but I just did not feel ready to say yes to them. And what I chose instead was something pretty powerful. Going from being so busy and engaged and involved in this, really wonderful but intense job. And stepping away from that was like my life went into a blackout. It
Mm,
was if I unplugged from a source of energy that was fueling my life, and it was dark,
mhm.
and it was quiet, and is a little lonely too, honestly. Yeah.
I want to acknowledge you for having the courage to actually um, consciously leave the job, the career, um, and and step into an unknown space. I mean, that was a commendable act of self-love, which I'm not sure if you saw at the time. as you reflect back on your journey. But I see it as a courageous act of self-love.
Yeah, it's interesting because, kind of talking a little bit about the values, one of my core values is self-worth. And what I had realized when I stepped away from this role in this company was that I had defined so much of my self-worth through that role and company. And when you make a transition and you move away from something that's so powerful, and it fills up so much of your mind and your body and your whole self. And I thought to myself, well, I was a leader. Am I a leader now? I'm not leading anyone. It's just me. And it really sent me into a space of really needing to kind of question and explore, like, who am I now? What is my identity now that I have made this change? And that was really the beginning of my messy middle. I entered with that big question, who am I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful. How about you, Erickson? You can share a little bit about where did you come from and what are you transitioning to, and maybe also help us get in touch with that moment that kind of defined the beginning of this transition for you.
Where I started is it started way back when. And I think what I can best say about this journey is kind of reclaiming a calling that I had. Speaking to Leanne about the value, it's just like my one of my chief values is compassion. But I discovered in beginning to do this work that I was compassionate to everyone else but me. I never intended to step into an almost 30-year career in graphic design. That I wanted to be a priest when I was a boy. I wanted to serve people in being a spiritual leader. But I had to make the tough decision back in the 80s to leave seminary because from their point of view, I was not compatible because of my sexuality. So I thought that calling was dead. Forward to about 2018, universe decided to take me out with a spinal injury. And after that, I made the acquaintance of Peleg, who was offering a session like this about what do you do after 50 if you're creative. I'm like, oh, that is so me. I do this. And from the beginning of that, it kind of seeped in that, oh, I've been doing all this. I'm good at it, but this really isn't what I thought I should be doing. This isn't the way that I want to leave my mark on the world. I don't know what to do with this. And so just being in conversation and deciding to do the 100 days cracked that door wide open. So the last 5 years has been an exploration of what is it to tap back into this calling? What is this attractor? And for me, it's just like going from compassion to this deep awareness of all I really want to do is I don't want to solve other people's problems anymore. I want to bring people into relationship with their inner wisdom so that they can begin by being aware and compassionate with themselves that we're not problems to be solved, we're mysteries coming into form. And for me, once I got that and began to see that juice from doing this deep inner work on myself, but for me, there's another point to that. At some point, the reason my messy middle has been so long is that, and there was something that you said, Peleg, is like, can the journey that you're on be in support of to nourish the next stop? And that really hit home. It's just like, so, but what really hit me is being on retreat in January, I made the firm commitment that it's no longer time to play. I'm in my late 50s. And if I don't decide to be compassionate to myself and do the work that I really want to do, when am I going to do it? Am I going to wait to my deathbed? Because not very effective. So, and I realize that there's this beautiful dance in commitment between discipline and devotion. And they're both sides of the coin. And once I really began to get that, and with the support of community and beginning to get validation that from some of the things that people, I had a design client the other day basically say, "Oh, something you said to me 5 years ago, I can't get out of my mind. We need to talk." And I'm like, "Well, I wasn't thinking about doing coaching. I wasn't thinking about teaching, but well, damn universe, thank you." And that's really helped fuel that fire. It's like, oh, I not only can I make a mark in the world, I've already started.
Mhm.
And if I'm compassionate, I will own that, not out of pride, but oh my God, there's a big difference between being of service to someone and being a people pleaser. This is what service looks like. What I was doing in my graphic design is people pleasing. And there's a huge difference. And
Yeah.
now it's just like, even when I bring with problem solving in graphic design, I bring a coach's attitude to it. It's a collaborative journey. Um, so
Yeah.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Beautiful. I'm curious to ask you guys, how did you manage yourself during the tough parts of the messy middle? You know, there's a lot of uncertainty and fear, and it's an emotional roller coaster, right? We've all been there. I'm curious to hear from you. Maybe one or two things that you can share with everyone here is, what are some of the things that supported you along the way that you've learned and that you
Mhm.
may even still practice in your life to a degree that helps you ultimately get in alignment with your truth? It's a big
Mhm.
question, I know.
Well, for me, it was about my messy middle was my sabbatical and how I spent that time. At first, it was honestly just giving myself permission to rest. Um, and I felt guilty about that at first, but I said, this is what I need to do. So I
And what
gave
did rest look like for Leanne? I'm curious.
what rest looked like. Haha, it was really hard. I um I'm a very go, go, go person. And so rest was about giving myself permission to slow down and to start exploring, kind of looking, instead of looking outside all the time, looking inside. So one of the things that I did actually was I started journaling. I've journaled on and off through the years, but I picked up a journal again and I started writing. And uh, it was it was really cathartic. It was really helpful. But I will say that um, I ultimately felt like I wanted or craved like the support and the inspiration of others, of others going on this journey. Like I'm so fortunate to have had, loving friends and family who were supportive, but they weren't necessarily going through what I was going
You
through.
couldn't relate, right?
Yeah, they could empathize, but maybe couldn't
Right.
relate.
Yeah.
And so I was definitely seeking that sense of community. Also, I'm a collaborator. I love being around other people and collaborating with other people. And I'm like, oh, when I talked about unplugging from that energy, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I just want to feel that sense of connection again.
Yeah.
And honestly, the Creative High Growth program came at a really good time for me because that was an opportunity to to plug into that energy, to kind of turn on that energy light in myself and to be in community with others going through a similar journey. And everybody's journey was different and unique in their own way, but similar in the sense that we were in the messy middle. We're all in the messy middle together. So that was really powerful for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Journaling is a powerful tool. I mean, we use journaling every day inside of our process, and I found it to be a cathartic tool. It's my daily ritual. I can't start my day without meeting myself first in the journal book. Ericson, how about you?
A couple things. The biggest, and I have to agree with Leanne that doing the creative high growth journey was really the beginning of the deep work, and it gave me a space and a framework to really dive deep. And one of the places I had to really dive deep is, okay, I'm a man, I'm in my 50s, I'm gay. I had never been taught how to relate to my emotions. I had dealt with depression most of my life. And I've come to the point now to realize that for me, and this, I'm not a doctor and I'm not playing one, but for my personal experience and for the experience with a lot of people I meet, is that depression comes from, it's basically emotional constipation, that we don't know how to metabolize our emotions properly and they get trapped inside of us. And what really brought it in is I went through a rough patch in my marriage and went to therapy, and she's like, you two are the easiest I've ever dealt with, because in 4 sessions we can get this done. But here's the big thing: look at each other in the eye, talk, and listen. And Eric, get in touch with your emotions. That would serve you well. There's like that really hit home. So for me, it's been a really deep dive, and it's been. I'm not going to say it's been easy. It has been really, really, really tough for me. But oh my God, now that I'm there, now that I've been doing the work, my world has done a 180. If you're not in touch with your emotions run your world.
Yeah.
And what I was noticing is the deep repression came out as, instead of expressing my emotions and working with them to metabolize them, I would spray them all over everybody, or I would pull myself out of community and relationship.
Yeah.
Because I said to my partner once, it's like, I can't tell you how I feel because I don't know how I feel.
Yeah.
And then becoming aware enough and vulnerable enough to ask for help. That was a hard one for me, is to ask someone for help, because I've always been, I got to rely on me because no one else is going to be there for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of bullshit thinking in that.
Yeah.
So, but to be able to not only now be able to feel what I'm feeling, but to name it, has just been a revelation and
Mm-hmm.
so freeing. And the practice of creativity, of really tapping into that creative voice that's uniquely my own, instead of problem solving for other people through visual works,
Yeah.
to develop, to allow the vocabulary and symbolism of my inner world to express itself, and for me to honor it with compassion and love.
Yeah.
That's what finally broke me open to allow the beauty of my inner world to come out.
Yeah. I have witnessed you, that 180 that you're talking about that you've done. Um, I've witnessed and continue to witness that 180 happening in your inner world more than in your outer world first. There's a shift and a change in the way that you have been showing up to yourself and then showing up to the world as a result of that, that I think is an extension of the inner work that you've done. And for both of you, Leanne and Erickson, I love witnessing your creativity in this process, and the way that you've approached this shift, this change, this transition, with giving yourself permission to truly tap into that creative voice, that authentic voice,
Mm-hmm.
not for the sake of solving somebody else's problem, but for the sake of expressing yourself in the world. And ultimately, I think all of us who are here on this call, have have one thing in common that I'm pretty certain of, is that we all have a desire to express something, and that that thing that we want to express is unique to who we are,
Mm-hmm.
and the world needs that particular form of self-expression that you bring to the table. So the invitation here is to get in touch with that voice, to nourish that voice, to to cultivate that voice, to meet that voice with love and curiosity and no judgment, and be curious enough to ask, I wonder what I have to say. I wonder what it is that I really care about. And giving ourselves enough space and time to explore the answer to that question. Yeah. So thank you for your shares.